Welcome to the Mondovo Agency One-on-One series. We interview successful marketing agency owners who share their learnings and experiences from running a successful agency. Learn from their successes and failures to build a better agency yourself. We get you revenue figures, actual customer experiences, and practical case studies. The Agency One-on-One series is brought to you by Mondovo. Mondovo is your ultimate all-in-one tool set that saves you hundreds of hours a month in managing your SEO and social media campaigns.
Hello everybody, thank you very much for joining another great episode of Mondovo 101 series. My name is Bala and I'm your host. Today we are talking to a phenomenal communication strategist and the founder of sociallyrelevant.us. Roger Johnson, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for coming here. So, Roger, we know that you're doing a lot of stuff, and your view on marketing communication is entirely different. That's something what I have understood looking at your website, and you're also doing a doctorate towards this particular area. Now, before we kind of get into everything, we want to know most of it. For our viewers, tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, for a long time, I've been working in marketing and public relations in both sides. I started out in public relations in 2006. I moved into digital marketing probably around 2008, and I've been in digital marketing ever since. And just recently, I've decided to step out of marketing completely and go back into the academy to get my PhD, because I think that there's a better way that we can do marketing moving forward, and that is through dialogue, and that's really kind of what my research is going to be in the doctorate program.
Oh, pretty cool. Now, I also read your story. How you kind of got into this, this field before, in 2006 and all. So tell us how and when you kind of got really started with the socially relevant. Pretty interesting story. We want to know about it more.
How I got involved with socially relevant is kind of an interesting evolution. I started out, like I said, in public relations, and I had a blog that was called Your PR Guy. And that was pretty successful for a while. And then some young professional that was coming up in the world wanted to buy my Your PR Guy URL, so I sold it to him, and that was fine. And then I started Socially Relevant, and really kind of Socially Relevant is my foray into digital marketing, into content marketing, and now is again evolving into this whole concept of dialogue and how we do dialogue and the work that we do in dialogue moving forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect. That kind of puts it. And you also mentioned that you started as a journalist in the beginning, right? And then you kind of moved into PR, and since 2006 you kind of moved on over there, right?
Yeah. The interesting thing about journalism is that we have to go all the way back to when I was a senior in college and I was graduating, and I was a good enough writer and a good enough person in creating relationships that I was employed before I ever got out of school. All right, and I was excited, and so I went to my professor and I said, "Hey," I said, "I've got this great journalism job at a paper, north of where I lived." And I remember that she sat there in her office and she goes, "You're going to fail at journalism. You're not a journalist."
Oh my God!
So being the stubborn young boy that I was at that point, I didn't listen to her. So I went out and failed a couple of times, and then I realized that really kind of public relations was really where I succeeded. And then when I got my first PR job, I went back to her office a few years later and I said, "You're right, I failed." And she goes, "So what are you doing now?" And I said, "Well, I'm in PR." She goes, "I knew you'd end up there at some point."
Good. Very good. So
that's how I got into it.
That's cool. So your experience where you kind of started as a journalist kind of really shaped into your PR side of it, isn't it? So that kind of gave a complete path towards where you are right now. That's good. Very good.
Yeah, the journalism experience has been invaluable to both the public relations side and even more so in the content marketing side.
Very good, very good. Now let's kind of take a deep dive inside right now. So now, Roger, according to you, like, what is the relationship between, like, you kind of speak a lot about social media in your site, and you also talk about the content marketing with brand building and other things. So how do you kind of see a relationship between, like, say, social media, content marketing, and brand building along with it?
Well, the brand is a thing that a lot. Well, let me back up. So a lot of people think that the brand is a thing, but the brand is really a living conversation that happens between the customer and the business. And when I say the business, I mean the people that make up the business. So in that conversation, we have things that are doing a lot of work. One, the content is helping customers understand the business better and the products and services that business offers and how that they can use them. But the social media, all right, the social media does a couple of things. First of all, it can create conversations between people in the organization and the customers themselves. And it's that conversation that builds the relationship or the brand, if we want to use that term, between the customer and the business, and that conversation is extremely important, because in that conversation there's always work that's being done.
Right. Very important, and nicely said that. And that's there's another thing, like, when you take the social media as an area where you want to be kind of pitching to in the audience, so much thing goes along with it. Just not promoting about the product, but also your whole company culture. The way you kind of serve to your customer. Many things have been measured through social media, isn't it?
Right.
Very good. So.
Yep.
Okay, so my question was that exactly, like, what are your thoughts on the media landscape then today? Like, in terms of journalism, PR, and marketing communications and other things. So, where is this landscape is taking us today?
Well, I think they're all very distinct parts still, but I think that it's the content marketer's job to be the conductor of the orchestra. So the journalists play a role, influencers play a role, social media plays a role, and I think the content manager, the content director, is the person who needs to make sure that these roles are orchestrated in a way that can push that brand story out to customers, to the audiences, to people. And what I mean by that is really kind of developing relationships, deep relationships with journalists, understanding their particular audiences, and writing content that they can use to develop the stories that they need to develop for their audience. So many times we see, and this is the PR side of things, so many times we see content marketers putting out generic content and public relations people putting out generic content to journalists. That's not useful. The key is being useful. And the same thing goes with influencers. In fact, I lump journalists and influencers together into one group, because journalists are influencers and influencers are citizen journalists. So they're one and the same, and I don't see a distinction between them, other than one gets paid by a newspaper and the other one sits at home, But so that's one side of it. The other side of it is the social media side of things, and developing that conversation with people to get them excited about sharing your content. Not only sharing your content, but talking about your content, talking about your company online. So let me give you an example of that. Recently, as in last month, I was working online with a customer that was unhappy with our company, or with the company that I was working with. And so I started a public conversation with him about his particular problem. Now, in that conversation, all these people on Twitter are watching this conversation unfold, which is fascinating, because then you get people that are starting to follow you. Okay? I'm sorry.
No problem.
And then you get people who are starting to follow you. And then you get people who might start to want to chime in and be a part of that conversation. So what happens is that we resolved this guy's problem. All right? And it wasn't a hard thing to resolve. But then after we resolve this problem, then we get into another conversation. The conversation evolves, and he's like talking about how wonderful we are, how responsive we are, how nice we are. And all of that is publicly shared out there on Twitter. And so people see that, and it has an afterlife well beyond just the conversation, let's say, that a customer service person would have on the phone. Because if a customer service person is having a conversation with a customer on a phone, then it's just between those two. In Twitter, it's with you and the rest of the world. So what we saw, interestingly enough, and I just saw this out of the corner of my eye, was the company I was working with. We had this ticker on the big screen TV, and as I was having this conversation, my colleague noticed that the ticker was going up. All right, that we were getting, lands on our website and everything. And I'm like, so I asked him. I said, "What are we getting lands for?" And it was for the product that we were talking about online.
Wow, that's good.
So that conversation is extremely important for the brand.
Very good. Talking about this, Roger, like, what are the common mistakes people normally do it when everything has been said? Content is good, you have the right people following you, and everything is good. But, what are the common mistakes people do it in this when everything is all set rightly?
They think that they can automate this stuff, and then they think that they can tie, let's say, social media to return on investment. And I kind of defer to Mark Schaefer on this. He's a very popular, very well-known social media expert in the United States, and I think arguably the world. He wrote a book called ROI, which is the return on influence, not investment. And it's the influence that is the currency in social media. It is the influence that matters, the relationship that you build with people. And that first of all, that can't be scaled. Okay. Secondly, you have to pay attention to what's happening almost all the time. So let me give you like another example. I had a problem with Southwest Airlines here in the United States. That was a common problem. And instead of calling their customer service line up, I just got online and I tweeted. And within 30 seconds, I had a response. Within 5 minutes, I had my problem resolved.
Look at that.
Okay. Again, and at the same time, Southwest Airlines really understands this, is that everyone was seeing them resolve our problems. And we had a little joking fun in there as well, which adds humor and that whole humanity thing to your conversation, instead of just being an organization that's out here that's nebulous and doesn't have any type of personality. People really want personality. So I think one of the things that people lose and people make a mistake in social media is not having a personality. If you don't have a personality, people aren't going to follow you.
Perfect. Now, you kind of gave one clear analogy here. Social media is something what people kind of use it, or it could be used best for customer service, customer support, or when you're kind of taking when you're kind of connecting with your customers. Okay. But at the same time, it's also used as promotion activities of whatever is actually happening, the content or the product or the services that you're actually promoting. Okay. How this should be balanced? Always a question. How much I need to promote, how much I need to kind of engage. What is the kind of a content that has to be taken in?
Well, that kind of really depends on your goal. You know, for an example, I'm getting ready to promote a product right now that no one knows about. Okay, so initially, to get my message out there, I'm going to have to do a lot of promotion. I'm going to have to do a lot of paid promotion because, you know, the algorithms with Facebook only allows us to do that now, and Twitter is about the same way. But once I start to get that engagement, all right, then I want to capture those people in a conversation, and I think that's really important. But the other important thing is getting those people that you capture from your initial advertising and your initial promotion into an email list. Because if you can convert them from social media to an email list, then your promotion becomes free. Because then you don't have to advertise to them anymore. They've already opted in and saying, hey, I'm really interested and I want to know more. And so that's all kind of part of the customer journey that we talk about. So I would say as a number, I would always lean towards more conversation and less advertising if you're a well-known product or if you're a well-known brand. So I would say more 80% conversation, 20% advertising. But if you're getting ready to launch a new product, then you need to flip those numbers around and do 80% advertising in the up front and 20% conversation until you get enough people where you can flip those numbers back around again. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. No, absolutely. It makes sense. So when you, as an agency, some company approaches you and in order to kind of do a particular promotions for them, how do you kind of take it up? So you have to kind of you kind of completely evaluate the situation and then you suggest them, or how you normally kind of think, okay, where they are right now, at what kind of point you kind of make that decision, okay, 80% here, 20% there?
Well, I do what they call, I audit everything, and I analyze not only their social footprint, if they have a social footprint, but their web properties, their product, itself. I analyze all of that. I even analyze their own ability to be social in social media. So, for an example, I'm getting ready to work with a client, and his business has no social presence. All right, his website was built in 1999, and he has no content, and he has the product that he's creating is a brand new product. So you can see that we don't really have any foundation on which to build. So I have to build that, and that's where I say, okay, we're going to have to do a lot of promotion here to get these people interested in what you're doing, all right? And then we also have to connect that interest in that advertising with something a lot bigger than just the product that you have. And that, I think that's really key. So what we're talking about right now is kind of creating a movement,
right?
A community. So it really depends on the client.
Perfect. No, that makes sense. Client and the product, what they are actually trying to do, and especially for the startups when they're actually trying to get into the market, right?
Right.
Now, talking about social media itself. Now, this question always haunts me. Like, when you have to integrate social media with the, say, offline event that you're actually doing, how do you do that exactly, and how do you do it properly?
What's your question again?
Integration of social media with offline events.
Oh, with offline events.
Right.
That's an interesting topic. When you do offline events, you have to have people dedicated to social media, first of all. So you have to set up some sort of social media command center, quote unquote. And when you do that, you have to make sure that the people behind the social media are good at developing relationships with people. At the same time, they're good with they have some sort of personality as well. So the first thing you need is some sort of social media command center. I mean, it could be one or two people sitting around a table someplace with their laptops watching everything on Hootsuite. The second thing is they have to be proactive about engaging people. So if they see somebody using a hashtag that you've created for the event, that they engage that person with the hashtag. So that's another thing you need a hashtag for that event. If you're going to use Snapchat, you need to use their technology for the geo tracking to make sure that you keep that conversation going in the event, and so that people can find it as well. And then finally, I think really what you need is you need to give your social media team at the command center autonomy to be themselves, to have fun with it. And another thing which I think is really interesting is that you also need to have part of that team out in the audience, out in the event themselves, and doing what we used to do in journalism back in the 1990s is on the street or on the street conversations with people, man on the street type of stuff. So you take your video camera or your iPhone and you have a conversation with somebody, and you promote that through Twitter, through Facebook Live, and all these other different channels. But even more than that is that you need to tag these people as well. All right, because when you tag those people, then other people see that they're getting tagged, and that's the same thing that we used to do in the 1990s in journalism. Is that somebody in the community, we'd interview them, and we'd put their name in the paper, and people love that, and they'll share that kind of stuff with other people.
I think that's pretty much there. Like you kind of evolved to say Periscope or Meerkat to what people are trying to do in the event itself, was showing what's happening behind the scene. And showing what's happening exactly in the event, apart from what the event is actually about. Pretty interesting. Good. Now, another thing is you spoke about influencer marketing, very much close to a journalist and these people. Now, what is the exact take on that? Now, influencer marketing is something you want to promote your product in a way, but influencers do promote it in their way for their particular audience, right? So what is the exact take? Some say that influencer marketing is kind of dead, no, it's not going to work, and things like that. I want to understand what is your take on this? Well,
my take on this is that influencer marketing will only die when the human race stops living. That influencer marketing is always going to be here, and it has been here since caveman times. All right. And it will be here long into the future. So anyone who says that influencer marketing is dead is lying, and you should run away from them. The interesting thing between influencer marketers and then journalists is that journalists expect you to pitch them the product at some point. All right. And they also expect you to try to give them some sort of parameters to mold their story. They expect that, all right, because that's part of the business. Now, whether they choose to do that or not is up to them. Influencer marketers, this is where they differ just a little bit, because they're people just like you and me. And they want to have freedom and autonomy to experience the product themselves and to add their own type of flair to their promotion of it, if they want to promote it. And if they don't want to promote it, that's okay too. So I think the difference there is that you give influencers the autonomy to do what they want to do with it. So, like for an example, the organization that I was just working with last month, we created this whole social media thing, influencer thing called Your Adventure Team, right? Because it was a travel insurance company. And so what we did was what they're going to do is they're going to allow people who are buying travel insurance to take a flag with them, to wherever destination that they're going, and write a story about it. But how they write that story and how they take a picture of them and their adventure team flag is entirely up to those people who are on their adventure. All we get is the user-generated content, all right, as they've decided to create it. So what I'm hoping to see is that people create videos, people create, really interesting pictures, that they have super cool stories, and that they find, new and interesting creative ways to tell those stories. Because what that's going to do for that company is it's going to show other people out there when we promote that through social media, or if they promote it through their own blog or website, that we're open to cool, creative stuff, and we enjoy it. And I think that people like to be a part of that kind of atmosphere.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Now, sorry. Now, when a new company comes, like, of course, you spoke about various ways how a particular product could be promoted in social media. Now, say a complete new startup comes up, someone who doesn't have any presence in social media or does not do much there, but apparently they're doing a good job in terms of SEO and AdWords and things like that, but not much in social media, because either their customers are not there or their product is such a way that they don't have to be in social media. In those cases, would it make any relevant case for them to be in social media, or they should absolutely avoid it, or everyone should keep their hands into social media?
Well, I think every business out there should have a presence in social media. And the reason why I think that is because at some point, somebody, one of your customers, is going to run into a problem with your customer service, because something's going to go wrong there. Inevitably, it always does. And then they're going to go to social media and complain about it. If you're not there, you've missed that opportunity to take that complaint and turn it into something more productive, not only for the customer, but for the company as well. So that's one reason why I think that every company should have social media presence at some level. If it's an organization that's doing great in SEO, it's doing great in paid advertising, my question is, why wouldn't you want to create a conversation with your customers? Because if we think about conversation and we think about how rewarding it is just between two people, why wouldn't your customers find it that much more rewarding? It's the way in which we have, or which we can humanize business. When we talk about humanizing business, it's the conversations that we have and how we do them, and that's really important to understand how we do them. And it's also, and I don't think a lot, and this is one of the reasons why I'm going to go get my PhD. I don't think a lot of businesses really understand how conversations work and the work that's being done in conversations, and how they're structured and how they evolve and how they have an afterlife. So for a business that's doing all the great stuff out here in SEO and in paid search and all this other stuff, paid advertising, great, super, keep it up. All right, you're just going to benefit more from social media if you're there than if you're not there.
Absolutely. See, one of the major reasons why most companies also stick into that is the calculation of ROI. Now, you take SEO or you take AdWords, they know exactly, okay, they spend so much, they're able to get this much. But do you think that it's kind of a little bit difficult when you actually have to calculate the ROI of what you kind of get out of social media, because lots and lots of activity, but a real calculation what exactly worked or did not work, wasn't it tough to calculate, or how we exactly calculate?
Well, it is tough to calculate, and it's hard, if not impossible, to calculate the value of conversations, because it's a sociological exercise. All right, you can only. I guess the best way to put it is that you'll only know if it works when you see that it works. All right, you'll know it when you see it. All right. So, for an example, with the company that I worked with last month, and we had this conversation on Twitter with this company, I recorded all of that conversation, And then I went to the senior executive and I said, hey, look at what happened here. Okay? Now, we can't tie this directly to a dollar figure necessarily, but indirectly from my conversation, what happened was that not only did he get a refund, all right, which is what he was after, all right, but we have all of this other potential social media activity and all these other potential people that we can go after, for products and services later on. So it's developing the potential for what's coming next. It's kind of like in a marriage, all right? If you're married to somebody, you don't calculate, the ROI of your conversations all the time. If you did, you would be divorced.
Right. ROI of my wife would be a conversation to talk.
Yeah. But that's really kind of how you have to think about it. Is that, at the end of the day, it's not about our ROI in investment. It's about ROI in the influence that you're creating, and people need to get over measuring everything. That's what they need to get over.
Well said. Right? Absolutely. It's all about influence. We do it, but you see, social media functionality is also, it's kind of constantly evolving, right? So the companies and the people who are working behind it also kind of should be kept in the foot and understanding what's kind of coming new, so that we can go and explore it. What do you think about it?
I think that you should always explore new social channels and new technology that's out there, just to understand what it's doing and what its limitations are. Whether or not you should engage people in those social channels only becomes relevant to the organization if you find customers using those channels, and a significant number of customers using those channels. Mm-hmm. So, like for an example, with the company that I was just working with, we did find a lot of people that were using Snapchat, all right? But we didn't know that before until we actually found one of our customers in there, because we were using it ourselves. Mm-hmm. So the idea of always kind of being an explorer with the technology is extremely important. And even if you explore it and it doesn't work, that's okay. There's nothing really lost there. There's everything that's been learned. Right. And so you always have to look at these explorations as learning experiences.
Absolutely. Very good. Now let's talk about the business that you're actually doing right now, Roger. So how socially relevant, you run it as an agency to help various companies to do their social media campaigns. How exactly have you work with the clients?
Well, pretty much what I start off with is a free call. We talk about their business goals. We talk about their marketing goals, because sometimes those can be a little bit different. And I really kind of get to understand what the customer wants, what the business wants me to do, and then from there, what we do is we do a lot of research. So we get into their social media accounts. We get into all of their other different web properties, and then what I'm really analyzing for is the level of conversation and indicators that conversation is happening. And if it isn't happening, then that's a different conversation between the new business and myself. If there are ways in which we can improve their conversations in social media, then that's really where I do my best work. Because and then we just develop a plan, and if they approve the plan, then we go and we execute it. And what we like to do is we like to work on an iterative way of working. In other words, what we do is we don't want to do these one and done types of campaigns, because in social media and in content marketing, this is a long-term investment. I always tell them. And if you're not willing to put in the time and the effort for a long-term investment, then we don't have any business working together, because at the end of the day, you're not going to be happy, and I'm not going to be happy, and that's not going to be good for either one of us. So that's really kind of how I work with them. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So you have a team that kind of execute for them, or you kind of train them to do what they got to be doing?
No, I do it all myself. I cherry pick the clients that I want to work with, and I work with them by myself personally. And then I have contracted people that I work with to do very specific jobs. Like I have somebody who is extremely good in like Facebook advertising, and so if we want to do advertising, you know, I'm farming that work out to my particular client, or not client, but colleague, who actually just lives right down the street from me, and he does all that. If I want graphic design, I farm that out to my graphic designer, and so my team literally is all over the world. In fact, I have people in India that I work with as well, who do different things for me.
Pretty cool, pretty cool. So
Yeah.
you kind of look only at the social media side of it, not the SEO side or the AdWords side of the business, or just focusing only on social media?
I do social media and I do content.
Okay.
And then if I have any type of SEO or any type of paid advertising type of work that comes across, then I either farm that out to one of my colleagues, or if it's something that is larger than what we can handle alone, I have a couple of agency friends, especially in paid advertising, that I just farm that work out to them, so that they can do it. And these are top agency companies in the world. Like one agency company that I work with here in the United States is one of the top in the United States. And then there's another one that the person who owns it started Google AdWords, or was one of the top 15 people on Google AdWords team. So they know their stuff.
Perfect. You got the right people around you. Perfect. Fantastic. So in terms of leads, how do you get new leads? Is it like people normally come to you, or you kind of have a way of nurturing your leads?
Well, I primarily nurture my leads online. So most of my business comes through online marketing. So I'm out there in Twitter. I do a lot of Facebook, and I do a lot of Facebook advertising. But then I find that a lot of my leads come through LinkedIn. And really kind of what I do is like, okay, I want to work with this particular type of company. So I do some searching. I find people who are leaders in that particular field. And then if I want to go out and get leads, I just start conversations with people. I don't sell myself. I say, hey, you're doing great on this particular thing in social media, or, you're doing great on this particular thing on your website. And I just start a really nice conversation with them. And over time, they realize, oh, wait, this guy does, inbound marketing or content marketing and social media. Maybe we should talk to him a little bit more.
Cool.
So it's all about the relationship with people.
Perfect. And so normally, how long does it take to kind of churn a lead to a customer for you?
It really it's hard to say. It's hard to say. Sometimes it's a week. Sometimes it's months. Sometimes it's a year. So it kind of really depends. But I'm not really so much worried about how long it takes. I'm worried about the relationship that I build.
Perfect. Very good. Fantastic. So you alone and you with your particular best team. So how many customers do you kind of handle right now, and what kind of projects you're doing?
Right now, I have 3 that I handle. And the reason why I don't have that many customers right now is because I'm getting a PhD.
Absolutely.
And so that really kind of takes up a bulk of my time, and I'm doing research there. And so my customers are kind of like my laboratory. So if I find out something over here, then I come over here to them and I say, hey, let's see what happens if we do this. And because I've developed that really kind of tight relationship with them, they're more apt to say, yeah, sure, let's try that. And if they're, and I haven't had anybody say, no, let's not try that yet, because I've developed that relationship with them.
Perfect. No, that's good. So you kind of bring everything together and then start putting it together. Perfect. Fantastic. So I think we covered most of the areas over here. So thank you very much for that. So if our viewers have to kind of contact you, what is the best place they can reach out to you?
You can reach out to me at my email address, which is Roger, RODGER, at sociallyrelevant.us. You can also reach me on Twitter at SociRelevant. And you can give me a call, too. My telephone number is 317-908-5850. And you can also reach me on the web at www.sociallyrelevant.us.
Thank you very much. Well, for the viewers, there would be show notes and all this information would be there in that. So definitely you can go ahead and connect with Roger here. Perfect. Thank you very much, Roger. Really nice talking to you. And
thank you very much.
And in the coming days, I'm going to do another show with you where we kind of talk very specific to a particular topic, and let's kind of dig deep inside that and see what is that we can kind of do. Plus, that would be kind of a way where we kind of dig something on the PhD side of your side and show our listeners what they get from that.
Sure, absolutely. Sounds great.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Have a great time.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Mondovo Agency One-on-One series. For information on show notes and transcription of this episode, visit us at mondovo.com. If you found the episode worth your time, please do spread the word. Tweet it, email it, and share it with your network. Do keep checking back for more new episodes. Till next time.